And now turning to our program, I'd like to welcome Phil Volrath, Director of Public Relations for Armed Forces Week, to introduce our speaker.
Thank you, past President Jeff. I would just like to, before I begin, introduce the people from the Armed Forces Committee that are here. This is our Armed Forces Week program, and they're all sitting over here at this table. It includes Tom Buck, who's the chairman, and Jim Piddleco, and also Candy Arndt, who was in chair of the chair of the banquet last night. For any of you who may have gone to that, Jenna Lenski, and also Sue Fauci. They're all members of our committee. So thank you for being here. I'm very proud to welcome Colonel Charlie Merkel, who's our speaker today. He's going to have some exciting news. He's going to tell us exactly when the war in Gaza is going to end. He's going to tell us exactly when the war with Russia and Ukraine is going to end, and he's going to tell us when Madison is going to get some new airplanes. So I think you'll enjoy hearing those things. Actually, I was just joking. I hope he wasn't alarmed to hear that. He's a wonderful person, and I think you'll enjoy him very much. Again, his name is Charlie Merkel. He's our speaker today, and he's the new commander of the 128th Air Refueling Wing, located here in the General Mitchell Air National Guard base. He's responsible for 900 personnel assigned to the wing who support the worldwide mission and enable the combat employment of at least 10 key C-13-5R stratotankers. His command comprises 4 groups and a wing headquarters. A Milwaukee native, Colonel Merkel graduated from Marquette University in 1964. He was commissioned into the Marine Corps through the Platoon Leaders Course program in that year and attended Naval Flight School. Earning his wings in July, flying in 1997, flying the FA-18 Hornet, he deployed to the USS Stennis aircraft carrier in Iraq in 2000 and to Afghanistan in 2002. Since then, he was assigned to the Marine Aviation Weapons and Tactics Squadron in Yuma, Arizona, the Wisconsin Air National Guard, where he joined the 115th Fighter Wing and completed an F-16 transfer course at Luke Air Force Base. As an F-16 pilot, he deployed to Iceland, Africa, Okinawa, Lask Air Force Base in Poland, and Kunsan Air Base in South Korea. He served as Aerospace Control Alert Commander from 2011 to 2013 and Operations Support Commander from 2013 to 2018. He has commanded other groups and other units since then, including Deputy Commander of the 128th Refueling Wing through February of 2024. He will today address the current state of the 128th, their mission, plans for modernization, and efforts to complete the KC-46 tanker. He will also present changes coming to the Air National Guard's role in the tense Indo-Pacific region. Colonel Merkel and his wife Sandy reside in Pewaukee, and they have 4 grown children. Let's together welcome Colonel Charles Merkel to our Rotary Club.
Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for having me and the rest of our members from the 128th here today to the Honor Guard. Awesome job, as always. Great to see you out. We've got our recruiters here and others, so thanks for coming up. I do want to introduce briefly Chief Master Sergeant Bill Smith. He's our command chief at the 128th Refueling Wing, and I pretty much don't make any decisions without consulting him, particularly on how it's going to impact our enlisted force as our senior enlisted member at the wing. So I'll talk to you about what we're doing at the Refueling Wing, and probably 3 takeaways I'll hit on is some changes that are coming to how we deploy overseas. And how we present forces in the overseas missions. Also, a little bit on our state partnership program, which is really important to us and to the National Guard in general. And then lastly, we'll hit KC-46 and what's going on with potentially getting a new tanker for the Refueling Wing. A little bit on the Wisconsin Air National Guard. There's Air National Guard and there's Army National Guard. So we're Air National Guard. We've got basically 3 locations throughout the state of Wisconsin. We've got the 128th right down at General Mitchell Airport, right on the east side of the airport. If you go through Concourse C ever when you're flying out of Mitchell, you just look across and you can see our tankers out there. So we're about 900 people. The fighter wing in Madison, they're flying the F-35s right now. They've got about 1,200 people. And then the other location we have is Volk Combat Regional Training Center. So that's up north of the Dells by Camp Douglas. There are about 300 plus members up there. We're super fortunate in the state of Wisconsin to have a fighter wing, a refueling wing, and a training center like Volk Field all under one roof. And we make great use of that partnership. Contrast that with the Army is a little bit different. They're bigger. They've got about 7,500 members in the state, and they are spread out throughout the state through almost 70 armories. So the Air and the Army, we work together, but they are structured a little bit differently than we are. There's our mission: elite airmen delivering exceptional air power that fuels our state and nation, and a force for the future. Our primary mission is to refuel airplanes while airborne. That's a picture of how we get that done. That's one of our KC-135s. I love this picture. It was taken last May, and that is our tanker bringing brand new F-35s to the fighter wing in Madison. So that's the day that the first F-35s were delivered to Madison, and we certainly, as a refueling wing, wanted to be part of that event. So we went out there. They were flying from Luke Air Force Base to Madison, delivering those brand new F-35s to Madison. And we had another fighter up there with a photographer in the back take pictures of the event. So this is the same picture you see up on the billboards around town that say Milwaukee's Hometown Air Force. So really proud of the partnership there that we have in the state with our fighter wing. So good synergy there. Okay, how are we structured? Like I said, down at the refueling wing, we've got about 900 airmen. People don't know, hey, is the Guard full-time, part-time? We're about 1/3 of us are full-time. So our daily job is Air National Guard. Because we fly on a daily basis, we usually put about 2 to 4 airplanes up every day on training missions within the Midwest, refueling whoever wants practice refueling fighters, bombers, transport planes. I would say most of our airmen are from the southeast Wisconsin. The greater Milwaukee area. The rest come from around the state, and then some are actually from out of state, and they will commute in on our what we call our drill weekends. So 1/3 full-time, 2/3 part-time. So one of the strengths of the Air National Guard is we are a scalable force. So when we need more people, when we need to go do our overseas missions, we can activate our members and take them overseas with us and put together an appropriate package to do the overseas mission. Economic impact. What do we bring to the local area? We can send people through college. Someone can join when they're 18 years old. We will pay for their college, and they can get out after their 6-year enlistment. They'll be 24 years old, college complete. They'll have learned some skill in the Air National Guard. They may have been on an overseas deployment, and they will have no debt. So I always tell people debt-free with a college degree. That is what we offer people. It's a different program than say ROTC. I love it because we don't pick you up and move you. And I always tell people you can live locally and serve globally. You can do your entire military career right here at one unit. So college tuition, technical training for various career opportunities. We estimate we provide over 1,600 jobs in the state. $83 million economic impact, and community support in terms of fire protection and our state tasking, which I'll talk a little bit about as well. One thing that makes the Air National Guard or the Guard unique is that we basically have two bosses. On the federal side, we report to up through the chain of command of the President of the United States, and then on the state side, we report to the governor. So we basically have two bosses. I'll spend a little bit of time on this slide here on our federal missions. Air refueling is our primary mission, and the way we do that when we go overseas is we'll put together an aviation package, maybe 4 tankers, 120 people, and we'll deploy them overseas for 90 days or say 3 months at a time. The Guard 30 years ago was a strategic reserve, and we would do 2-week deployments overseas as needed. That has changed dramatically in the past 2 to 3 decades. We're no longer a strategic reserve. We are fully operational, deploying right alongside the Air Force. If you look at the active duty Air Force numbers, they've been drawn down over the years. Our overseas commitments have not been reduced, so they're looking at the Air National Guard and the reserves more than they have in the past. The Air National Guard contains about 50% of this nation's air refueling capacity. It's a pretty big number. So our tankers are tasked routinely with the overseas missions. So we do those aviation packages overseas. We always have 1 tanker and a crew that's tasked to go anywhere in the world at any time, and that's what they're doing. They're moving airplanes and people around the country and globally as we speak. We have what we call a reserve component period, where we'll send kind of piecemeal. We'll put together a package and send them overseas. Those are usually 6-month deployments. And this is one of the changes that's coming to the Air National Guard, is we're looking at formalizing how we, quote, present forces globally. So when the Middle East or Europe or the Pacific needs forces, what the Guard wants to do is put together more comprehensive package. And what this may look like in the future is the entire refueling wing, or most of it, deploying from the wing commander on down, and we will deploy as a coherent team with a bigger package. So this is a real change to the Guard as we continue to look maybe a little bit more like active duty in what we do when we go overseas, and particularly how we deploy. That's important because as we lengthen our deployments, we have to keep in mind that many of our members have civilian jobs, and to take them away from a job for 6 months is a big ask. So we're figuring out what that looks like right now. But one of the problems we're facing is we've got this emerging threat in the Indo-Pacific region, which is China. And we are figuring out how are we going to manage that fight with what we have today in terms of our ships, our planes, our tankers, The tanker force is a major logistical backbone to getting people and airplanes overseas. So the Air National Guard and our hometown Air Force here is going to play a huge role in presenting forces in the Indo-Pacific region. And we are doing exercises as we speak to practice that. Did one called Mobility Guardian. That was an active duty exercise last summer to move forces around the Pacific. And then concurrently, we did one called Air Defender, which is a huge NATO exercise, which is all Air National Guard to move tankers and fighters over to Europe and back. So that was basically two major exercises at once to demonstrate that we can do that. So it's really remarkable what we're practicing right now and the Air National Guard's role in that. So that's one of the things I just want to leave you with today is the fact that we're fully operational and we are looking at that. What we call a near-peer adversary, China, we're looking at that very seriously every day. The other thing is our state partnership program. This is National Guard and an Air National Guard program. And currently what we have is about 90 state partners, and we want to ramp that up to 120. So every state has countries that are designated as state partners. And Wisconsin's state is, or Wisconsin's partner country rather, are Nicaragua and Papua New Guinea. Nicaragua has been our partner for some time. Papua New Guinea, relatively new in the past several years. So what we do is we maintain relations with them. We'll send people, airplanes to Papua New Guinea for a short period of time, just to really build a relationship and break down barriers. And what this gives us, you think about where Papua New Guinea is located, extremely strategically located in the Pacific. What this gives us is influence, overflight rights, access to ports, access to airfields, and the U.S. has realized that having state partners worldwide is critical to moving forward. And if you read the news, China's been doing the same thing for decades. China does a little bit differently. They strong-arm countries into becoming partners. We offer a little bit more of a collaborative relationship. So with Papua New Guinea, we have hosted them here in the state at the fighter wing. And then recently we took 2 tankers, this was in March, 2 tankers and some security forces and maintainers and flew them to Papua New Guinea. They stayed there for 5 days, did some training with the Papua New Guinea military, and then we came back. So kind of, that's not a long event, but it's critical to building relationships. So when you need them, you're not starting from scratch. So really an important program that the National Guard is doing for our federal mission. On the state mission, we offer the governor emergency response whenever he needs it. So when you think of a reaction force, that's where they need security for civil disturbance, say like we saw in a couple years ago. It's more of an Army National Guard mission. However, the air will augment that as necessary. We will be providing forces for the Republican National Convention this year. We can do medical response. So we did a lot with COVID vaccinations, things like that. And then we have a crash, fire, and rescue force that can respond on the airfield at General Mitchell, and they'll also go off station as well. So 2 forces there, or two missions there, our federal mission and our state mission that we offer to the state of Wisconsin. Here's what we're flying right now, our KC-135 tanker, the Strato tanker. We love it. It was built our tankers were built between 56 and 1964, when I think Boeing cranked out over 700 of these KC-135 tankers. There's still about 375 of them flying today in the Air National Guard, the active duty, and the Air Force Reserves. We have a crew of 3, 2 pilots and a boom operator is our minimum crew. You can see some of the stats there. The key thing is that it goes back a ways. We've had this tanker for a long time. We estimate that there are some KC-135s that will be flown for 100 years before they are retired. So We are modernizing the fleet, and the latest tanker that has been purchased is the KC-46, and I'll talk a little bit about that. There it is, the new tanker, the KC-46 Pegasus. This is built on a Boeing 767 platform. The acquisition of this tanker goes back quite a ways, but it is they're rolling off the line brand new. Capacity-wise, carries a little bit more gas than our current tanker. But it is, the key thing is it is new and it's got all the new systems on it. So there are some things that it does that we cannot do. Cargo is a little bit increased. So we talk in terms of pallet positions. The KC-135, what we're flying right now, carries 6 pallet positions. KC-46 can carry up to 18. And it's got more passengers, has a medevac capability, better than what we have. So it's really kind of multi-role, and it comes with self-protect systems, better command and control, better awareness to what's going on around us. With the fight in China that may or may not be coming, for the first time, we are talking about sending tankers really into harm's way with modern weapon systems. For years, the tankers have been able to stand off, refuel fighters, and the fighters go into the threat. Now that's changing with the advent of surface-to-air missile systems that have ranges of hundreds of miles. We're going to have to send tankers really into harm's way. So with something more modern like the KC-46, it's more survivable than today's KC-135. Here's our competition. So right now, the National Guard Bureau is making a selection of who the next Guard unit will be to receive the KC-46 tanker. There's 15 of us that are competing, and you can see our competition here is on the right. Those are the 15 that we're in competition with, and I say competition. We work routinely with these Air National Guard bases, and these are 15 Air National Guard refueling wings, structured much like us, that fly the KC-135 tanker, all the way from Bangor, Maine, out to Joint Base Hickam in Hawaii. So one of these units is going to get chosen to get the KC-46. Guard Bureau announced in January that they're going to be running a competition here to select, narrow that from 15 down to 5. We should know this summer, or certainly by the end of this calendar year, if we made the top 5. And of course, the 128th, we are keenly interested in being in the top 5. On the left, there are the bases that already have them, and that's a mix of active duty, reserve, and Air National Guard that currently flies the KC-46. If we were to be named, I would expect 2027 or 2028 would be when we see the first ones rolling in. So the benefit to our wing and the community is that if we get named for the KC-46, we have a brand new tanker. We preserve our flying mission for decades to come, and there'll be a pretty large amount of construction that goes on the base to bed down the new tanker. A little bit on our base itself, and just to let you know what we've got going on, we're always looking at modernizing and improving our facility. Like many Guard bases, we're small. 99 acres is our footprint. So that's one of the things that we tell people is, hey, we can do it cheaper and more efficient than the active duty. One of the reasons is because we're physically smaller and we leverage off a larger airport that we have a very good working relationship with. So there's an aerial view of the 128th. This is on the east side of General Mitchell Airport. One of the key things is that the far east runway at the airport is going to be removed in a couple of years. That will allow us to expand our ramp to the west. We are excited about that possibility because it allows us to bed down the new KC-46 tanker, because that tanker is slightly bigger. One thing that's pretty exciting is we just started a project called the microgrid. One of the things the military is thinking about right now is how to continue operating in a crisis situation, in a power outage. So if we ever lost power, if the energy grid ever went down, for whatever reason, the 128th could still operate. And that's what this microgrid project does. It allows us to disconnect from the local grid, run our own generators, and completely power our base without any external power, to include pumping fuel. So that allows us to operate in an emergency. So we're starting that project right now. We've got a sensitive compartmented information facility. That's a secure briefing location that is kind of a big deal for us to have access to the latest information. And we just kicked off what we call our POL, which is petroleum, oil, and lubrication. That's a fuel storage facility. That was 10 years in the making to get that project approved and funded. So that's a military construction project. I think the bill on that is around $36 million, but that modernizes what was an old fuel storage facility. Being a tanker unit, fuel storage is very important to us. So we just kicked that project off recently, and it'll be about a 2-year build to modernize our fuel storage facility. And then to add the icing on top of that is there is a pipeline that runs right along the railroad tracks next to our base, and we want to be able to tap into that so we can get access to fuel without even trucking fuel onto our base. So we're thinking resiliency, and the ability to operate in the case of emergencies to do our state and federal mission better than what we can now. So those are some modernization things that are coming to the wing. I do want to talk a little bit about what's going on around the state and at the fighter wing as well. Beautiful picture here of the F-35s. This is one of Madison's new F-35s. We were refueling them one day, and one of them pulled up alongside the right wing, and the right seat pilot took this picture right out of the cockpit window of the KC-135. So beautiful shot of one of Madison's brand new F-35s. Little known is that in the state of Wisconsin, we've got this fantastic military airspace that we train in constantly. So this is really of importance in particular for the fighter wing, but also for us. And we fly in this airspace almost on a daily basis, refueling fighters for training missions. The airspace extends from Lake Michigan almost all the way across to the west part of the state, with the Dells on the south and about Marshfield on the north side there. When people wonder, why do you put fighters in the state of Wisconsin, one of the reasons is they need a place to train. And there's a lot of military airspace out west where the weather is good all year round, but that airspace is quite saturated because they've got so many fighters out here. So we can do all this training right here in the state of Wisconsin. There's a bombing range in the middle of that called Hardwood Range. And then you see Volk Field on the south border there. They manage that airspace for us. We do host an exercise. The state of Wisconsin hosts this exercise every year up in that airspace called Northern Lightning. In 2015, they really ramped this up, and it has been since certified as a joint certified training exercise. And it's about a 2-week exercise for fighter tactics. And you can see there in this picture, you've got F-16s from the active duty and the Air National Guard. You've got F-18 Hornets and Growlers from the Navy. That happens to be a Marine Corps F-35 B model fighter sitting on the left. And of course, they've got the tankers flying that right here out of Milwaukee. And what they will do is run fighter exercises in that airspace. Something like this would look like the good guys, what we call blue air coming from the east, with aggressors, or what we call red air, the bad guys in the west, simulating an airborne threat, surface air missiles, and we'll fight our way through those problems to find and attack targets on the ground. We'll do close air support. It's really an amazing exercise, and we host that right here in the state of Wisconsin. So some really neat things that are going on and that have been going on in that military airspace, and all hosted by the Air National Guard. And the active duty has loved this exercise to the point that they call us every year, different units from all the services. Say, hey, are you running Northern Lightning again? Can you got space for us? And usually we don't have any problems finding units that'll play in it. And oftentimes units will fly in, we'll refuel them, they'll do the mission, and then they'll fly back out and they'll participate remotely from long distances. So that's where the tankers and the airborne refueling comes into play with these exercises. Being a joint exercise and being accredited to that equates to money and funding. So it's to our benefit to have that here in the state. So we've really benefited from that. Okay, so that's what we are doing in a nutshell. I wanted to hit on our overseas stuff, particularly our state partnership as well, and then just what's going on in the state of Wisconsin here with both the refueling wing, how we work with the fighter wing, and Volk Field. So open floor for questions or comments or anything I may have left out.
Colonel, thanks so much for being here. What's going on with the announcement that Selfridge International Guard Base? Thanks. With the announcement that Selfridge Air National Guard Base and the Michigan delegation kind of got their best foot forward and kind of stuck their foot in the door and took that 8th position ahead of where Milwaukee's going to be.
Right.
Does it give you any concern that because Selfridge is relatively close to Milwaukee, just outside of the Detroit area, that they're so close relatively within the United States to us, does that hurt us for getting the KC-46 or not?
It wasn't my favorite thing to see that they got chosen. The proximity doesn't bother me that much, because if you look at the current laydown of where tankers are, a lot of them are concentrated in the Midwest. And that goes back years ago to when we built the whole nuclear enterprise, and we put the bombers and we put the tankers in the middle third of the U.S. If you divided the U.S. into thirds, that middle third, and that's still where they live to this day, both bomber bases and tanker bases. So that doesn't hurt us too much. And one of the reasons it doesn't is because we have such long legs. And some of our, I've done some local training sorties that, one took me down to the Outer Banks in North Carolina. Another a few weeks ago took me down to Louisiana, and that's just a one-day training flight. Go down there, refuel somebody, and come back, and that's all in a day's work. So the proximity doesn't bother me too much. I think one of the things that we didn't like was that selection didn't quite go through the lengthy basing process that the selections typically do. And that actually rattled some cages. Selfridge got named without going through the normal process. Part of the reason is that Selfridge has 2 missions, 2 platforms under one wing. They fly the KC-135, and then they fly the A-10. And with the A-10 going away, getting the KC-46 was kind of part of that payback there. So I'm not losing any sleep over it, but now that got some politicians' attention, and they're like, hey, Air Force, you need to go through this process and not just name people, because politicians, the elected officials want to keep these assets in their states, So, sorry, long answer to a good question.
Thanks, Colonel. As a reminder, if you have a question, you may form a line here. Thank you.
Hi, thank you for being here. I just have more of a practical question. With the newer planes that the Air Force is putting out, are they more fuel efficient, so it requires less refueling, or is it a wash with all the weapons they carry and all the stuff they do?
It's typically a wash.
Okay.
And, on a day-to-day basis, we do, fuel efficiency is something we pay attention to, and conservation of assets and whatnot. But fighters chew through a lot of gas. Airplanes use a lot of gas. Ships use a lot of gas, and there's really no way around the physics of that. So, to answer your question, the new fighters burn about the same amount of gas as the old ones. They're more focused on capability than efficiency.
Thank you very much for being here and have all the other armed services and our best to all the people that are serving our country. With this big refueling tank that you currently have,
Yeah.
how many fighter jets can they refuel at a given one tank full?
Well, okay, it depends. We think in terms of pounds, we carry about 200,000 pounds of fuel. Quick math in public, dividing by 6, what is that, 40,000 gallons? 34,000 gallons. A fighter every time a fighter comes up, may need between 4 and 8,000 pounds of gas. So we can refuel many fighters at a time. Typically, they'll come to us in pairs or 4 at a time, and if there's more, then they'll hang back behind us. But we could easily refuel, say, 16 fighters and still have gas left over. So thanks for the question.
Colonel, thanks for joining us, and certainly welcome to your colleagues here. Early in my career, 100 years or so ago, I was in the advertising agency business, and I managed the Air Force recruitment advertising in the state of Wisconsin, mainly for the professional ranks, and dealt with some absolutely fabulous, very competent, very professional people. So kudos to the Air Force. My question is, from a functional standpoint or a mission-based standpoint, what's the difference between U.S. Air Force and the U.S. Space Force?
Wow, that's a great question. We're going to find out in a couple of days because we've got one of the senior leaders of the Space Force is joining us. But you know, I look at, as I think about our capabilities, the U.S. military has mastered many of the frontiers: sea, undersea, land, air. And I look at some of the new frontiers, and I think of 3 frontiers. One of them is our state partners that we need to get better at and maintaining those state partners. And the other is cyber, and the other is space. I think cyber is this amazing unknown that's gonna challenge us forever. And then I look at space as one of those other frontiers that I certainly can't speak to intelligently, but I think is really important that we've dedicated a force to space. And I know that carving out another service was controversial at the time, but I think it's probably going to be to our benefit to have a force that is looking specifically at space. And one of the reasons is, you know, we depend on satellites so much for communication, reconnaissance, GPS, and those things are embedded in our tactics. And if we don't protect that, we're going to be this is going to put us back 20 and 30 years. So it's really important that we're looking at space. It's an emerging mission, and we'll see how it plays out. So it's a great question. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. This is a state partner question. Is it a one-way street with our state partners? In other words, we send our personnel there to get to know the cultures and the circumstances, or do they send their personnel to Wisconsin, for example? Be they professional personnel or civilians?
They've sent personnel here, and typically it's in pretty small numbers, just to build relationships and to keep that dialogue going and to break down barriers. But it really varies. It's what we make of it. And I'll give you another example. Illinois' partner is Poland. Poland flies F-16s, while the state of Illinois lost their F-16s probably between 10 and 20 years ago. So Wisconsin informally picked up that state partner, and we had great collaboration with Poland, where they came here to look to see how we run our airspaces for aviation training. And then we did 2-week deployments over to Poland with our F-16s and train alongside them for 2 weeks at a time. And I did 2 of those, and it was fantastic too. And again, it's about kind of breaking down barriers and getting comfortable, because there's always that awkwardness when you first start working with a foreign country, because there's language barriers and different customs and courtesies. But by the end of 2 weeks, you're having beer together, and that all goes away. So it's really to our benefit. I've become a big believer in that program.
This will be our last question.
I have a question about the air refueling function. Actually, 2 quick questions. First is, how long does the average fighter, how long is it able to stay in the air without refueling?
I would say 2 hours roughly.
Not long.
It depends on how much gas or how aggressively they're flying. Yeah.
You touched on the vulnerability of tankers in a combat situation. I've always thought they must be incredibly vulnerable. And with modern technology, even if you're staying away from the combat zone, I don't want you to give away any military secrets, but how do you protect a tanker in a combat situation if it's anywhere near the combat zone?
We can put defensive systems on it, so chaff and flares, electronic jamming, things like that. The other thing is situational awareness, and we are building this into our tankers right now. All the fighters have data link, where everybody is data linked up, and they're seeing the entire picture. So the glossy brochure from like 20 years ago, where you had all the fighters and different weapon systems, and they had little lightning bolts between them, and they're all communicating. We're like finally there, where we have this complete picture, because computing power and GPS has synced everything up, and now we can communicate with each other electronically. Now the tankers have been a little bit left behind on that one, but now we're bringing the tankers into that picture as well. So the tankers will be able to see the whole threat, and they'll at least be able to take defensive reactions. So if there's fighters or missiles bearing down on them, they'll at least know it, and they'll have built in the tactics of, okay, I gotta run away, and I gotta call for fighter support to get in and protect me. So there's things that we can do to protect what we call our HAVAs, our high value airborne assets, and we're looking at doing that as we speak. You bet. Great question.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you.